Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated weed whacker guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, so much news happening and everybody wondering what is going to happen with Iran. Are we on the brink of some military action against Iran? There is a long and strong possibility that that may happen. Could there be a potential targeting of the nuclear sites again, like we did just a few months ago? Remember, it was less than a year ago that we hit those 3 sites. Could there also be a hit of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps? There's a lot of potential things. What about some sort of regime change? What about a targeting of somebody in the regime? Look at what President Trump did with Venezuela's Maduro. There are so many options on the table, but it seems like President Trump is getting more and more frustrated, clearly, with the leadership in Iran and saying that they just can't seem to reach a peace deal. Here's what he said just a little bit ago at the White House.
Well, they should make a deal, but they don't want to quite go far enough, and it's too bad. Look, we've been playing with them for 47 years, and that's a long time. They've been blowing the legs off our people, blowing the face off our people, the arms. They've been knocking out ships one by one. But every month there's something else, so you can't put up with it too long. We're not happy with the negotiation. They just don't want to. They don't want to say the key words. We're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They have to say we're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and they just can't quite get there. They want to enrich a little bit. You don't have to enrich when you have that much oil. So I'm not happy with the negotiation.
You could tell he is frustrated, also always keeping the element of surprise. So what do you think President Trump is going to do? Do you think that he feels the weight of history, that he sees that this is a unique moment, and also the Iranian people slaughtering their own people? There are reports anywhere from 30 to 50,000 of their own people just in recent weeks. President Trump certainly feels that. He also realizes what a major threat Iran is, not just to the Iranian people, but to freedom-loving people around the world. So does it seem like President Trump is going to take some action, guys? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Personally, I feel like this is a critical moment. Obviously, I trust President Trump's instincts. I don't know if anybody knows what he's going to do. He may not even know, because I think he's looking at things from a minute-to-minute basis. But he's clearly getting a lot of these military assets in theater ready for a potential strike if it comes to that. And I applaud President Trump. He has not been rushing to go to war. He is not a warmonger president. There is no doubt about it. He clearly is a peace through strength. Put the strength in theater, let them know you could do it. But ultimately, he is pushing for peace at every turn, because Iran could lead to a prolonged war. And the president knows that, too. He was asked about that today. And he said, you know what? There are a lot of different options that are on the table. He also said that he is really frustrated that Iran just can't say a couple certain words. They can't say they don't want to have a nuclear weapon. They can't say they don't want to have a nuclear type of development. They kind of do this back and forth little game, which is par for the course for the people of Iran. Here's a little bit more of President Trump talking about Iran just a few hours ago.
How are the talks going with Iran? This is the problem.
No, I'm not. I'm not happy with the fact that they're not willing to give us what we have to have. So I'm not thrilled with that. We'll see what happens. We're talking later. We'll have some additional talks today. But no, I'm not happy with the way they're going.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the way they're doing it. You heard him say it there. But he also said, even up until the 11th hour, I am willing to negotiate.
Is there a risk that strike could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict in the Middle East?
I guess you could say there's always a risk. You know, when there's war, there's a risk in anything, both good and bad. We've had tremendous luck with myself, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi. Everything's worked out, and then we do the Midnight Hammer and so many others. Everything's worked out, and we want to keep it that way. But we're going to see. Look, it'd be wonderful if they negotiate really in good conscience, good faith and conscience, but they are not getting there. So far, Peter, they're not getting there.
So far, they are not getting there. It doesn't mean that they can't get there, but it just means they are not getting there. That's what it means. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Meantime, in the middle of all this, President Trump also asked about Bill Clinton, who testified today at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center there in Westchester, not far from the Clintons' home. Of course, the former First Lady Hillary Clinton testified yesterday. Today, President Bill Clinton, the former president, testified. He said, you know what? I'm doing it because I love my country. He said, I had no knowledge of anything that Jeffrey Epstein did that was nefarious. I didn't know him that well. And had I seen something, I certainly would have reported it. So I didn't participate in anything improper, and I didn't see anything improper. He also says that he stopped his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein soon after, before all those charges came about. I think it was 2008 when those charges came about against Jeffrey Epstein. But this is interesting because President Trump came to Bill Clinton's defense today. He was asked also not only about Iran and Cuba and everything else, he was asked, what do you think of Bill Clinton being deposed? Because, of course, this is very historic. It's been about 40 years since a former president has been deposed before Congress under oath, because that's indeed what happened today. He was under oath. The videos, by the way, of the Clinton deposition and also Hillary Clinton deposition are expected to be coming out potentially early next week is what they're saying. You know, the other thing I just heard, too, is that Jeffrey Epstein's accountant and his attorney are going to be testifying in about 2 weeks. Those were the money folks. That could be very interesting to see what they knew and when they knew it of his very nefarious activities. But President Trump came out and defended Bill Clinton, saying he didn't like the fact that Bill Clinton was deposed. He didn't think it was an appropriate thing to do to a former president. Take a listen.
I don't like seeing him deposed, but, they certainly went after me a lot more than that. I don't like seeing him. Look, I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed.
I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed. And this is interesting because a lot of people are now saying that maybe it sets a precedent because you got Bill Clinton deposed. And of course, Democrats who had all this information for a long time and they didn't put it out. They sat on all this information while they could have put it out for years upon years upon years, and they didn't. So the only thing that's changed now is that President Trump's in the White House, and they want to try to find anything they can do to go after President Trump. And so this is what was said apparently during his deposition. And Ro Khanna, who was one of the Democrats that was inside the deposition, it was from the House Oversight Committee, and there were Republicans and Democrats in that deposition. And so when he came out, Ro Khanna, he's the Democrat from California, he came out and he said no one was above the law, that Bill Clinton was asked that. But take a listen, because you can clearly tell the Democrats are trying to tee up and say, okay, well, now Trump, Clinton's deposed. Next is going to be President Trump. That's a very different animal when it's a former president versus a current one. But take a listen to what Ro Khanna had to say about that.
President Clinton, in his opening, made the most important statement: no one is above the law. And he made it clear that it was perfectly appropriate for the committee to call him and ask him tough questions about what happened. He also made it clear that it was totally inappropriate for this committee to call Secretary Clinton. That's why personally I didn't even show up yesterday. I thought it was outrageous the way they treated Secretary Clinton. She has nothing to do with this. But President Clinton answered the questions. I think you'll see when we have the deposition that our side that put the survivors first. We had our members, our lawyers ask questions to get the basic facts and asked difficult questions, and the president answered. And it was civil, and he set the tone, in my view, for the precedent that President Trump needs to now come and answer these questions, that Howard Lutnick needs to answer these questions, that other people part of the Epstein class who've been in these files need to come before this committee and ask these questions. And then that's the only way we're going to have accountability and healing.
So they're trying to tee it up, saying, okay, look, we had former Bill Clinton, former president. He testified for one long day under oath. Now it's Trump's turn. You know what they're doing. They're just trying to use this as a reason to be able to say, okay, well, now we need to get Trump. We need to get both sides under oath. But this is fascinating because James Comer came out just a few minutes ago, and he essentially said what Bill Clinton said under oath also in many ways kind of exonerates President Trump. Listen to this comment from James Comer. He's head of the Oversight Committee, the congressman, and he was talking about what Bill Clinton said about Donald Trump when he was asked about Trump in the deposition today.
President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved, and he meant with Epstein. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about President Trump. I thought that was an interesting thing that President Clinton said. So I'll let the Democrats have the podium and they can answer your questions, but we'll come.
And the question was to Bill Clinton, should Trump testify under oath? Like, do you think that President Trump should have to do it now? And Bill Clinton, ever the gentleman, said, no, it's up to you guys. I can't say that. But I also didn't see anything that Donald Trump was involved with anything nefarious with Jeffrey Epstein. So that was actually very helpful to Donald Trump. Both of their comments are actually very helpful. But does it open the door to a very dangerous sort of precedent right now, if you will, to say, okay, we're going to have this former president and now we're going to have the other? No evidence that Bill Clinton is charged with anything or connected in any wrong way. Obviously, there's a lot of pictures. There's a lot of flights with Epstein. There's a lot of trips, to the White House by Jeffrey Epstein 17 times. But Bill Clinton said, yeah, I knew him, but I never knew anything nefarious. So should this end the case, or do you think this is just going to be a bite for the Democrats to now say, okay, well, now we're going to go after President Trump, even though President Trump was the one who years ago told law enforcement, you know what, there's some interesting things going on with this guy, Jeffrey Epstein. You should look into him. So if anything, that should be helpful to Donald Trump. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And we'll take your calls when we come back. You are listening to The Rita Cosby Show on a busy Friday night. Well, Mayor Mondani asked about the snowball attack on police. We're going to play some of his new comments. Also, he met with President Trump yesterday. Interesting that they look like they're working towards this deal on affordable housing, 12,000 units. That's a good thing for New York. But why is the guy the only one who's been arrested so far in the snowball attack? It wasn't a snowball fight in New York, in Washington Square Park, where they were attacking police officers. Why did the guy get a slap on the wrist? He was originally busted and charged with assault, felony assault. That's a serious charge. And he also had priors. He wasn't a little kid. He was a 27-year-old. And then Alvin Bragg, which is why you can't have a soft on crime DA, reduced it to simple harassment. It's a simple misdemeanor. And so the guy's already out, probably throwing snowballs at other people tonight. Welcome to New York City Justice. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Norm in Brooklyn, line 4. Norm, your thoughts tonight. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Rita. Listen, I know I was going to. I could talk about Iran, but this Bill Clinton stuff. I have to finish up with this. Did they ask Bill? Did they ask Bill Clinton if he had any? If he was fooling around with that young stuff? I mean, Did they give him that question?
Yeah, from what I heard, they did, because they're the pictures where you see him in the hot tub. And he said that he did not have any inappropriate relationships, that he did not have sex. That's what that's what he says. That's what he says.
So
that's what he
says.
The
line. Did he use the line, "I did not have sexual relations with those women"?
You mean like he did? You're trying to refer to in 1998?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Did he go to his go-to line?
He might have gone to his go-to line, because you're right. He did do that. But he did say, and you know the issue. That's an interesting question, Norm, because of course the pictures don't look great. You see him in the hot tub. I imagine Hillary wasn't happy to see those pictures, although they've been all over the place. You know what was fascinating? After all this was over, Anna Paulina Luna, who is not exactly obviously a Bill Clinton fan, came out and almost made it sound like Bill Clinton might have been a victim, of entrapment, that Jeffrey Epstein was blackmailing people left and right, and maybe he might have even been like a member of like an intelligence agency. That was an interesting sort of direction. Norm, hold on, because we'll continue after the break. Because the other thing I'll tell you, and I can't wait to ask your thoughts on this, we're being told tonight that both Clintons seem to think Epstein's death was very questionable. I agree with them. Norm, stick with us. We're going to get your thoughts and everybody else after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Mount Dora, Florida, where a police officer who was off duty is being credited with helping to save an unconscious woman after a boat crash on the lake that sent 5 people to the hospital. The crash happened just before 9 o'clock on the lake. And the officer said he and his 6-year-old son just happened to be on a boat and fishing nearby when they suddenly heard a big collision. He says it was dark just before 9 o'clock. We had just settled in anchors in the water, and I heard a couple of motors near me. And then I heard, wow, a loud crash. He said that he called 911 right away, and he identified himself as a local police officer. He said, I'm out on the lake now. There is a boating accident. There are big injuries. And then they headed towards the crash site to check on those involved. When they found was a 39-foot boat that had collided with a smaller pontoon boat. However, they located a woman who was unconscious and trapped underneath the wreckage. Thankfully, the officer and others were able to get the woman out from under the boat and onto the vessel. Luckily, he was able to get her rushed to a hospital. She got hit by a big boat. It knocked her out. And thankfully, she is expected to make a full recovery. The other passengers were also taken just as a safety precaution. They were released. and everybody thankful to be alive, thankful to that great officer and his 6-year-old son who happened to be nearby fishing. They clearly, obviously, were angels that happened to be at the right place at the right time. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go back to Norm on line 4. Norm, go ahead. Your thoughts.
My thoughts are, the thing with Bill Clinton. I mean, I think he did it, but I mean, I think he was. I think he was messing around with some of those women. Hopefully, they were over 21 or over 18. I don't know what the age of consent is there, but I think he did it, and I'm looking at photos of Hillary right now. She does not look happy. That's all I can say.
I'm sure it was not a happy experience. Now let me ask you, Norm, on this one.
Sure.
About the death of Epstein. I find it fascinating that both the Clintons, they were asked, and according to people who were in the room from the House Oversight Committee, they said that Hillary Clinton said that essentially it was questionable circumstances as to how Jeffrey Epstein died. Like she left the door open, like she didn't totally buy the story that he killed himself. And then apparently Bill Clinton also did something fairly similar, like kind of alluded. What that I thought was really interesting, too, that both of them seemed to be uncomfortable with case closed. What do you think about that, Norm?
I think we've talked about this, but look, I'm not one of these conspiracy theorists when it comes to killings and things. Listen, I
by the way, Norm, I am not either, but I'm not comfortable that he killed himself. Yeah. You know, there are reports there are people who I trust who are great at autopsies, like Dr. Michael Baden, and he did it for the family. He said, there's no way. He said the hyoid bone, it was broken. Like there were symptoms of being strangled, in other words, versus strangling and killing yourself. And all the footage, they're missing that minute. I mean, there's so many things that still, it's too fishy, Norm.
So you want another investigation? You think that would be that's appropriate?
Yeah, I want a real investigation. I want just not another one. I want a real investigation, Norm.
Okay. Listen, I'm all for accepting that anything is possible in this murky world of billionaire pedophilia or whatever was going on there. Yeah, this is very possible. I don't know. I live my life a lot smaller and don't engage in going on islands and having sex with underage girls. I mean, I don't know. This is to the level of power and insanity that these people will go to keep it covered up. I see it's a worldwide scandal. I see there's a guy, there's this Prince Andrew, there's this politician in England, Mandelson, and I mean this is there were a lot of people involved in this world.
Head of, by the way, the head of Harvard, also the head of Harvard, the head of the World Economic Forum, that's the Davos group. So all of those, I mean, that's another one too. So you're right. It really extended far and wide. And that's why, Norm, I do think we need to get to the bottom of it, especially if there were those that were trafficking in underage women, whoever they are, powerful or not, it doesn't matter. What really bothers me, Norm, is that the Democrats had this information. They didn't do anything while they were in power, and when they could have done something, they didn't do anything about it. It's only been now because they thought, oh, gosh, we can go after Trump, and it's like backfiring on them because so far, even Bill Clinton said he didn't know of anything troubling with Trump related to Epstein. So, I mean, it seems like this was all politics, which is really sad because if indeed these women, and I believe some of them were, I believe Virginia Giuffre and some others were trafficked, definitely by Epstein. And it looks like to me that Ghislaine Maxwell played a role. And there should be people clearly that are held accountable. Right, Norm? I mean, at the end of the day, they deserve justice. And I feel like a lot of people, including especially the Democratic Party, they're playing politics with this.
There are forces within the Democratic Party that don't care. They will take out Bill Clinton. They will take out to get Donald Trump. The main objective is to get Donald Trump by any means necessary, and they don't care who they hurt in the process. That's my impression so far of what's going on there. So
yeah, I agree 100%. Norm, thank you very much. Really interesting. Let's go to Dom in Minnesota. Dom, by the way, what did you think of J.D. Vance becoming the fraud czar there?
Well, he is going to be the next president after Bill Clinton. After Trump, I can tell you that. He's going to be elected, and we're going to have another Republican president in the White House for the next 4 years.
So, are you predicting? Are you predicting a J.D. Vance Rubio ticket there?
Yeah, well, J.D. Vance Rubio or J.D. Vance, that would be it. Marco Rubio is almost, I don't know who would be president. They are outshining each other every time they come in front of the camera. These guys are two young and very energetic and very, articulate people.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They are very articulate. I see a ticket of the two of them. And again, like you said, I'm not sure who's on the top, of the ticket.
Either one would work for me.
Yep.
Yeah. And, Rita, they don't call him Slick Willie for no reason. He is slicker than an eel fornicating in a bucket of snot.
That's a good line. But you know what's interesting? If you're going to put a president, obviously the pictures don't look good. There's no question, Dom. I'm sure it's not a happy place in the household, to have these pictures. On the other hand, so far, unless they can prove it, it does sort of set a very dangerous precedent to bringing. I'm trying to figure out what the objective was of the Democrats to bring Bill Clinton and the former First Lady, because now they can say, they did it, so now Trump has to do it. So I'm not really sure. What do you think? Do you think that was a smart move or not? I'm just talking about from a political move.
Well, here's my problem with that. I still believe innocent until proven guilty. And in the absence of any proven guilt, except maybe here circumstantial, I can't come to a conclusion that satisfy my conscience. But here's what bothers me. When both Bill Clinton and Trump say, I don't know if I want him indicted, it gives me pause to witness how the powerful protect each other. But, in conclusion, I am sure glad to be part of a system where we have almost equal justice under the law.
It's better than the alternative, right, Tom? That is for sure.
You got it. You don't have that in any other country where the powerful can be held to almost equal justice. And I'm happy with that because, I'm not there, so I don't know. I'm happy with who I am, so I have to conduct myself properly. Otherwise, the first person who will kick me out is my wife.
And you don't want that to be. You definitely don't want that to happen, Dom. Dom, you're terrific. Thank you very much. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey on line 1. Sandra, your thoughts tonight on the Rita Cosby Show.
Oh, hi, Rita. Good evening and a happy weekend to you. I was thinking about, I wish that the people on the left would welcome the beautiful policies that the Trump administration has to offer. For instance, Sean Duffy recently implemented a beautiful policy that says any truck driver who drives a truck must speak English, must read English, and you cannot have the vehicle unless you pass the written test. They did it in Florida. They're doing it in other states as well, and we're going to do it. But meanwhile, a Somali truck driver the other day was driving in St. Louis, Missouri, going on a big highway, a well-known highway, the wrong way. And after they arrested him, they found out he never took a test to read. He couldn't read. He couldn't read the signs. He's an example of what the Biden administration allowed. So I would like the left to say, I welcome some of these beautiful policies that are being offered because it's for my own good, the left should say. So that was just an example of look what just happened the other day. A Somali driver, a truck driver, a big truck he was driving in St. Louis, Missouri, the wrong way for a long period of time. Could you imagine?
I saw that. By the
Right?
way, you know what it reminded me, Sandra, of sadly that other case there in Florida where, remember, there was that Indian driver who couldn't speak English either. Like, remember, he gets pulled over and the cops were asking him questions. And you know what also turned out? It turned out that a lot of these guys who were getting the licenses were able to bring translators with them. Can you imagine? They would get a translator with them for the test. And then after they pass the test, you can't make it up. You know, the translator does the test, and then they give, hey, here you go. Here's a massive big rig. Good luck on the highway with the rest of us. I mean, that to me is shocking. And I'm happy that President Trump is clamping down on that. But you know the issue is, Sandra, and this is the other issue. In the middle of the State of the Union, I thought the most poignant moment was when President Trump, and he was brilliant when he executed this one. He said, you know, okay, stand up, you know, if you will support and say that the first sort of business for an American government is to protect Americans over illegals. Stand up if you believe. And how many Democrats stood? Zero. Maybe John Fetterman, probably John Fetterman did. I missed that, but he probably did. Yeah, he probably did. But the rest of them, come on. Why is John Fetterman the only one with the voice of reason, Sandra?
I don't understand why they won't take the lemonade out of the lemons. They don't have to like everything, but when something good is offered to help the country, say, thank you, I appreciate this, we're going to do this. We're going to, that's what I'm trying to say, Rita. They don't have to like us. They don't have to want to be us, but they could appreciate the good things we have to offer, such as you have to read English. You have to pass the test or else you can't drive those trucks. That the Biden administration allowed all those illegal immigrants to get those trucks and drive without being vetted, without being tested. And meanwhile, they would put us through all sorts of vetting to get the commercial license to drive those vehicles.
Yeah, it is screwy. Sandra, you know, you missed out is that even currently, after all of this has come to light, there are still a lot of states, and that includes like California, for example. Gavin Newsom's been taking some heat because he doesn't want to revoke those licenses. I mean, to me, it's not a trick question, and it's not a question of a Republican or Democrat or any of that. The question is, you know, do you care about this country? And that should be something that's apolitical. It shouldn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. It's common sense that you want to have people who only speak English behind the road, especially if it says, do not make a U-turn, do not do this, do not do that. Think about how dangerous that is. If you don't even know how to read a stop sign or you don't know how to read a street sign that says one way, and not only if you're in a car, but if you're in a big rig, I mean, that is so dangerous. It is so crazy. And the fact that so many of these are still fighting. And you even saw it right there. It was so on display during the State of the Union. All those Democrats who just sat down and they would not stand up not only for Americans, values, they wouldn't stand up for American heroes. Think about like the Medal of Honor guys. They didn't stand up for that. They didn't stand up for the mother of Irina Zaruska. That was the girl who was stabbed on the Charlotte rail station. They didn't stand up for any of these things. It was shocking. So to me, the only thing they stand for is they hate Trump. And to me, that's a sad display of America and a sad place to be if that's where their priorities are, that they hate Trump more than they care about America. That's a very dangerous place that we've gotten so divided. And that's bad news for the Democratic Party. It's bad news for America. It's bad news for all of us. And it's a scary place to be. But it was on full display this week, Sandra. I'm sad to say. My jaw dropped every time I saw that. I'm like, no. They can't be not standing. Maybe they didn't hear that one. And then the next one came up. Maybe they didn't hear that one. Next one. And they still kept sitting, looking at each other. Should we stand? Should we not stand? Oh, I guess we're not allowed to stand because this is something good for Trump, even if it's great for America. Shame on them. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. I agree with Sandra. You better learn how to speak English and read English if you're driving on the road, especially if you're driving a big rig. We'll take your calls when we come back. And coming up on the Rita Cosby Show, we're going to be talking about the Nancy Guthrie case. Also, the fact that this guy who attacked NYPD officers with snowballs, guess what? He's now walking and he's going, ha, 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 I got out. Not a very good situation. Who knows what he's doing tonight? Plus, also, so much going on with President Trump on tour, trying to make the case, affordability, keeping the country safe, saying that's why you got to keep Republicans in the House and Senate. You can bet if they lose the House, within 5 minutes, they're going to impeach President Trump. What's his name? Al Green is going to be leading that charge. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Pete in Staten Island on line 1. Go ahead, Pete, your thoughts tonight.
Rita, it's been a busy weekend for me. I have some close friends that went to Mexico to a top-line resort, and they're stuck there. And we're trying to get them back.
Oh, my goodness. Now, what part of Mexico, Pete, are they in?
I forgot the name of it, something Lucia, and it's at the tip of it, so they're not really close to what's going on. And there's another friend of mine that's there. We told them, because my Uber guy told them, don't go to Mexico, go to Italy or something, but they love going to these places. They've treated well, and the situation, you got to know what's going on around you. They don't listen to the news. They don't listen to the 77 WABC that tells the truth, and we know what's happening, So,
and listen, Pete, there's some beautiful resorts down there. I mean, there are definitely some nice resorts, but my goodness, when things get crazy in Mexico, they get crazy and they get dangerous. And right now is such a scary situation. Now your friends that are in that part of Mexico, are they trying to get out? And you know what I've seen? I mean, in the last few days in like Puerto Vallarta and some other areas, you see, it looks like the Costco, I think, was burned to the ground. It looks like a war zone. I mean, that is really scary. And you don't know if they would, do something to Americans for this, for the sake that they stand out as Americans. What are your friends thinking?
Well, they're scared, but the one gentleman is actually the nephew of the late Paul Castellano. And that's the crazy part. And, he's got restaurants in the city, everything, Le Circus. He's part of everything in the meat market. They're working on it, but, they're safe because they found some places to, hide out.
Well, they got to be careful. Pete, please keep us posted because that is scary. It doesn't matter who they are. You don't want to get caught in the crosshairs, especially when you got warring cartels. Wow, wow, wow. We're going to continue, everybody, after the break here on the show.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number, save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.